look into theoretical domains, right, we saw that we are seeing one major approach to looking into a behavior change, and it's called as a
Sir.
PB model. So first we are going
Sir.
to
Hello,
motivation,
sir.
and I'm just going to today it's going to be a very this presentation on the different ideas behind motivation.
Sir, can you hear?
Yeah.
Sir, voice is very low. We can't hear. Sir.
1 second, I'm not able to hear you. Just can you just type in what you want? Okay, my voice is very low. Okay, right. What I'll do is, I think there is a problem with the audio, so I'll Sebastian, I'll make you as a host, and I'll just come out of this and then I'll rejoin. I'll just sign out and then come back. Okay, is it now clear?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Then I think I can just continue, right? Okay, Sebastian, can you give me back the host, right, so that I can share? Yeah, is it visible now? Sebastian, is it visible?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Yes, sir, it's visible.
My voice is audible.
Yes, sir, it's audible.
Okay. Right, so we are going to see about the M part of it. That's the motivation part of it. Okay. So I just want you to think about this particular case scenario.
Vasanth, sir.
What you would be doing in this. So
Vasanth, sir.
Sir.
He expects fast recovery in his arm function, especially
Vasanth, sir.
Sir, your voice is not clear.
Sir, we are not able to hear you, sir.
You're making him practice a few components of the task.
Sir, Vasanth, sir.
Functional task training.
Sir, can you hear me, sir?
Train that particular task. Right? So you make the person do buttoning and removing the button from the buttonhole. And you see that he's doing it as you say. But what happens is after a few days of practice, the patient asks you, can you suggest me any other exercises? And he expresses that he's not interested in doing this particular exercise. So the question, basic question.
Hello, sir.
Hello. Sebastian.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
Sir, your voice is not audible, sir.
Yeah. Sorry, I can't hear you. 1 second. Okay, right. So I'll just sign out and then come back. Just give me 2 minutes. Is my voice audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir,
Yes,
it's
sir.
audible now.
Okay, fine. Right. So, Sebastian, can you? Okay, thank you. Yeah. So what I want you to do is I want you to take your time. We'll give say 3 minutes or so. So the question is basically how would you motivate him? But more importantly, what I want you to do is okay, once a person starts telling that he's not interested in doing the exercise or he doesn't do it, you observe his behavior and you see that consistently he's not doing it. He's just showing you at sometimes, but when he's at home, he's not doing it. That time, what is the next thing you will do? Okay, right? And so after that, you would have done something, and then what will be the second thing you will do? And then finally, how will you motivate him? These are the 3 questions. So I just want you to think about this. It would be nice if few people, at least 3 people, can just um, give an answer to this. Try giving an answer to this. There's nothing right or wrong at this point of time, so please feel free and just try to express it.
So first thing is like we make him realize how much he has recovered
Okay.
initially and now,
Yeah, okay.
and like we'll make him focus more on the kind of recovery he has, achieved.
Okay.
And
So
another thing,
how would you go about doing that? What would you tell him?
so like previously he might not be able to do it at all, that
Okay.
buttoning. now at least he is able to put on, like with some maybe like 1 or 2 minutes he's taking to
Okay.
take to put on some like 1 or 2 buttons,
Okay.
and we'll tell them that now the time required for buttoning one button has reduced. So
Reduced.
if you
Okay.
keep on doing that, like being independent, and like it is not much time will not take to become something like how it was previously prior to stroke, something like that we can tell.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Right. So, would you do anything else also along with that?
Um, so maybe things like timing a stopwatch or something, I can
Okay.
keep it and measure it, and I'll tell him rather than like making him doing it under pressure or something. I'll
Okay.
give the feedback, like how much time it was previously taking and now it is taking, like.
Okay. Right. So that will be your way of doing it. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anyone else?
So the next thing would be just to acknowledge the fact that yes, it is difficult, and because he's expressing that he is not motivated, we might first try to understand that yes, it will be difficult. Secondly, we can give him this many number of repetitions, a target, or 10 times, maybe 15 times we do so. And thirdly, we can tell him that this is what you desire and this is what makes you independent. So he might feel that after doing this he will be independent, so that can motivate him.
Okay. Right.
Sir, here patient wants to dress and eat by himself. So he is interested, he wants to do that activity. So, but after some days, he's saying that he's not motivated to do the exercise. So we have to find why he is saying like that, whether the task is he mastered the task, or he is it is so difficult, which is giving the negative reinforcement for him. So we have to see that also, no, sir, first. Why he is
Okay.
not motivated?
Okay. Why he's not motivated? That would be your question. Okay. Yeah, that's great. Anyone from first year, can you just try? What would you be trying to do?
Sir, we can also go for family history, like who is helping the patient to perform that all ideal activity or task. So we can go in that way, like we can ask their family members that they should motivate the patient. So patient will try to do that things independently instead of taking help of their family members.
Okay. Right. Okay.
So
Fair enough.
probably
Yeah. Yeah.
use
Yeah. Please go ahead.
sir, use a easier way to buttoning, like using a bigger buttons, and so that would be easy for him to do.
Okay.
Like he may be demotivated because he could not be completing, he's not able to complete the task.
Okay.
If
Right.
he's able to complete it, he may be motivated.
Okay. You will make it easier for him by changing the button.
Size of the button.
Okay. Okay. So I get, yeah.
Sir, because he asked, he's voluntarily asking to change the exercise, also any other exercise. Maybe we can also focus on eating, then
Okay.
dressing.
Okay, all right. So what I get from these answers are there are actually two sets of answers of all the 5, 6 answers which you have given. There are two sets of answer. One is you're trying to convince him about something, or you're trying to change something as an intervention. And also the other set of people, although you did not tell explicitly apart from Subbu sir that why is he having, right? So you presume that he might be having because of one reason and you're trying to address it, right? So basically what we are doing is we are trying to identify a particular reason and then we are trying to address that particular reason, right? But many a times what happens is there are few responses that comes automatically to us. Now, what we are going to see in this combi model basically is there seems to be a specific reasons for why a person might not be motivated, and more importantly there seems to be uh, other reasons for that particular reason. Okay, right? So what I'm trying to tell is the behavior, when it doesn't come, there seems to be multiple layers of reasons for that. And so we may need to try and go deeper and explore a bit about it. And the tools which we will be seeing in this and the further classes would help us to go about it, right? So let's now start with what's a theoretical domains framework. Now, a theoretical domains framework is one approach to addressing the problems. I prefer this because this is the most recent approach, but more importantly, it's a very comprehensive approach which brings in a lot of ideas. Not just because it is comprehensive, it brings in a lot of ideas, but more importantly, it has been translated and work is still going on where anyone who has a decent enough understanding about language can try and implement it. So because it's helpful for us to implement it, I'm particularly very much thinking about it. Okay, right? So the theoretical domains framework is a list of domains of psychological constructs, right, or problems that can guide us in identifying the underlying reasons for a decrease or lack of behavior in general. Okay, right? This theoretical domain framework was basically developed by psychologists, sociologists, and other researchers who wanted to change behavior. So they all came together from different countries. They all sat together and they reviewed all the theories from prior years for the past 100 years. And then what they did was they identified from each theory what are the individual constructs. Construct is basically one particular idea of the theory. Okay, right? A theory may have a component of ideas. So amongst that, one particular idea is called as a construct. So what they basically did was they separated out these constructs and then they grouped all these theoretical constructs together and under different domains. So that's why it's called as a theoretical domains framework. Okay, right? They also, in this whole process, they also looked into which of the constructs seem to really influence behavior. From a lot of research, they did a lot of reviews, and then they identified which of these constructs seems to be really, really important for a behavior to come. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now the theoretical domains framework, it consists of 14 domains, and under each of these domains, there are many constructs. So what you see on the right-hand side is the combi model, which is capability, opportunity, and motivation. And as we had seen previously, capability has psychological capability, physical capability, opportunity has two, and motivation has two. But then you can see that each of these particular areas, say for example, under a psychological capability, the domains they have identified is knowledge, skills, memory, attention, decision process, and behavioral regulation. Like this, they have identified for each and every of the components. Now, all these components together form the 14 domains. Okay. So at the first level, when we say a person is not motivated, right, he shows a disinterest, it can actually be because of any of these. For example, one of you told that it might be difficult for him to do, so we might try and change the button. So it basically tells that his physical skills may not be sufficient enough. And so what we do is we change the physical environment. You can see under opportunity, there is physical, and under that environmental context and resources. So you're trying to change that particular thing, but that might be a factor which is influencing. Okay, right? So like this, there are 14 domains. Okay. So today what we are going to see is the domains under motivation. And as we all know, there are two types of motivation. One is reflective and automatic motivation. So reflective motivation is when you really want to achieve something. You think, you plan, you execute it, and things like that. And then you think why you have to do it. What is going to be the benefit of doing that? If you do a lot of thought process, and then if you're motivated, it's called as a reflective motivation. Right? I hope you're clear with the term reflective motivation. Now, the domains under reflective motivation, as we have seen, are number one is social role and identity. Number two is belief about capability. Three is optimism. Four is belief about consequences. Five is intention, and six is goals. Okay, so we will look into each one of these things. Okay, right? So, can anyone just guess what is an intention? What do you think is a intention of a person?
Change of behavior, sir.
Okay, intention is not a change of behavior. What we are seeing is a behavior is not coming, that is not doing it. Then why we are seeing, amongst that, one of the reason is motivation, and under the motivation domain, we saw that one of the domains is intention. Okay, right? So that's not the behavior. So can anyone else attempt? What do you understand by intention?
Sir, a motive or something that the person intends to do.
Something towards which he intends to do. Okay. Okay. Can we try belief about consequences?
Sir, what he thinks would happen if he does this, like.
Okay, right. So he thinks that if I'm going to do this particular exercise, I will say, for example, a diabetic patient. He might think that my diabetes might come under control, and I may no longer need to take medicine or something like that. So that's called as belief about consequences. Okay, right? Okay. So we will just go inside and see one. Right. First is identity. Okay, all right. Now, the definition is it's an individual sense of self, which means what he thinks about himself. Okay, right. Say, for example, every one of us will think that I'm uh, um, a person who always keeps my words, all right? Or I'm a vegetarian, I'm always a vegetarian, right? So that's what makes our identity. Okay, right? And it consists of two things. One is it's a set of physical and psychological characteristics that is not wholly shared with any other person, which means that we believe that what makes us unique is that particular character. So in a group of people who are smoking, when we don't smoke, or in a group of people who are drinking, we don't drink, right? Then we are trying to maintain our identity. I am not a drinker. I am a teetotaler. Something like that, we are defining ourselves, right? So that identity is one of a very important motivator. Okay, right? And it's not only about what we don't share with others, it is also a range of social and interpersonal affiliation and social roles. Okay, 1 second. Yeah, right. It's also a range of social and interpersonal affiliation and social roles which we take it. For example, when you many a times when you had gone to play, right, in young age, right? For example, you had gone to play cricket or something, you would always feel proud of telling that I belong to this team, particular team. Okay, right? So you form a group identity, and you basically believe that you are a part of that particular group, right? So many of the caste groups and religious groups, we basically try to define ourselves, and we try to relate with each other through that particular characteristics. I hope it's clear for you, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, right. So that particular identity is a very important motivator for most of the people. Okay, right. So that's one of the domains. Okay. Under that domain, I'm not listed on the constructs. A few constructs might be there, but I'm not identified the constructs. Okay, right. Now we'll move on to the second one, which is belief about capability. What is belief about capability is it's the acceptance of the truth about an ability that I can put to constructive use. Okay. So if a person believes that I may be able to do this, then that's called as belief about capability. Okay. Now there are 6 different constructs under belief about capability. One is self-confidence. Second is, I hope you understand what self-confidence is. Second is perceived competence. Perceived competence is as compared to other people, how you think you can complete a particular task. The third is self-efficacy. We'll go on to look into self-efficacy a little bit later in detail. Self-efficacy is slightly different from self-confidence. Okay. And then perceived behavioral control. Okay, right? So what's a perceived behavioral control is if you believe that you can control the situation, then you will see that you're involving more into that. Okay, right? That's called as a perceived behavioral control. Okay. Now the idea is not for us to understand everything, because what we are doing now is initial sensitization program about this new field of interest which has come and which can benefit all of us. At a later point of time, we may be doing individual components as workshops or something. So at that time, we might go deeper into it. But for now, I want you to understand the organization of what is a TDF and how it is working. Okay, right? Then beliefs. There are not only belief about capability, there are certain other beliefs which will in fact influence our belief about capability. And lastly, self-esteem. So we have identified that these 6 constructs would be a factor which will which comes under belief about capability. So now, how do we work on with this is when we identify that a person has a difficulty in he doesn't believe in his capacity to do something, he might not be doing that. Okay, right? So then our question becomes what component of it could be affected, because all these things are components of it. So what component of it could be affected? This is what I told as there seems to be primary reasons, there seems to be secondary reason for that primary reason, and then there seems to be another reason for that secondary reason, right? So that's what we are seeing. Okay, all right. So do you understand what's a belief about capability?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
It's a type of a self-belief that I think I'll be capable of doing this. Okay, right? Something like that. The next construct is optimism. Optimism is a confidence that things will happen for the best, or that the desired goals will be attained. Right? So we all know, when we ask, if I ask you, you all will tell that being positive about oneself, that is optimism. All right. So they are hoping. It's a kind of a hope that we have, right? That's what is optimism. Under optimism, the constructs that have been identified are optimism, pessimism, unrealistic optimism, anticipated regret, and consequence. Okay. right? So it might not be fair. You might be able to relate or understand what is optimism, what is pessimism, what is unrealistic optimism. But there seems to be a few other things which is anticipated regret about. It's basically if I am not doing something, then tomorrow it might turn very bad. Okay, right? So I need to do that. They might be thinking in the direction. And consequence are basically what are the things that are going to I might get this benefit or this reward when I am if I do it, right? So that again will be a component of optimism. Okay, that's optimism. Next is belief about consequences. So a belief about consequences is basically acceptance of the truth about outcomes of behavior in a given situation. So it's basically, if I do this, I will get that. Okay, that is belief about consequences. Okay, all right. Now optimism is basically you're positive that something will happen. Here you're expecting something. This would happen if I do this, right? And you're doing it. So under this, the constructs are beliefs. Second is outcome expectancies. Next is characteristics of outcome expectancies. Outcome expectancies are basically what are the outcomes you will get when you are going to do this. Characteristics of outcome expectancy is that particular outcome, what will be its nature. Okay, so say for example, a person might believe that if I do exercise for my arm will get all right. So some might believe that it will completely get all right. Some might believe that I might not feel too much of tightness. Some might believe that if I do this tomorrow, I'll be able to pick up certain objects which I want, right? So it can be very different. That's what is characteristic of outcome expectancies, right? And then again, anticipated regret and consequence, we have seen that. Okay. Next is intentions. Intention is a conscious decision to perform a behavior or a resolve to act in a certain way or an impulse for a purposeful action. That is what is intention. Okay. So we all intend to do something. Okay, right? So we think that, okay, now I want to do it, right? We become conscious about it. So that's what is the intention. The constructs under this is stability of intention. That is how long you're able to keep that intention. So when a person is doing a set of exercise, what can happen is initially he might think that I need to do this exercise in order to get this, but at a later point of time, he's okay. It's okay if I don't do this exercise. Maybe I'll do something else. I'll take something else in order to get all right, right? So his intention to do this particular exercise might vanish off at once. And we also saw that stages of change, that there are 5 stages. So in each of the stages, the intention of the person might not be the same. In a pre-contemplation, you might not even be thinking, but in an action stage, you might be intending to do that and you might be doing that. Are you clear with what is the intention?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, right. Next is goals. Okay, right. If intention is I want to do it, now goals is mental representation of outcomes that they want to achieve or the end state towards which one is striving. Okay, right. So he sets a goal. I want to get my arm to do dressing and eating. Right. This is not a goal which we set. That is, as therapist, we set goals. No, it's not talking about it. But what it tells is if a person is thinking in terms of a goal, he has a goal for himself, then it is possible that the behavior will start coming. Okay, right? So the constructs under this are goal priority. That is, if 2 or 3 goals are competing with each other at a particular point of time, he needs to prioritize it. That will be influencing the goals. Next is target setting. That is how much he has to achieve when he puts it. Action plans, how he needs to achieve that goal. That's called as a action plan. And then implementation intention, how he is planning and how he's trying to implement it. He's very clear about it and he's writing. So the difference between an intention and goal is a goal is a bit more specific, and the person has a clear idea as to how he is going to do things in order to achieve the outcome. Okay, that's what is goals. All right, so those were the constructs under reflective motivation. Now the constructs under automatic motivation. Now we said that reflective motivation is when the person thinks, why he has to do a particular thing. Right? Now, in an automatic motivation, it is kind of a phenomena. All of us know that when we keep traveling to some place, right? We just cross a place where a biryani smell is coming, right? On that day, we start craving for that, right? So that craving or that which comes despite us, okay, right? It's called as automatic motivation. So we go and we start eating that, right? Right? Or we go in the evening and we have to study, but then when we go and sit there, we are a bit tired, and then we start thinking, okay, today let me spend some time in looking at a YouTube video. And then what happens is, once you start seeing it and the shorts are there, short videos, and then you keep on going with that one after the other, one after the other. So there is not a lot of thought process which comes in. You just enjoy doing it and you keep cutting. Okay, that's called as an automatic motivation. Right? So the constructs under automatic motivation include identity, again, optimism, again, reinforcement, and emotions. Okay, right? So since we have seen what is optimism and what is identity, we'll just go on to reinforcement and emotion. What's a reinforcement is, it's the increasing probability of a response by arranging a dependent relation between a stimulus and a response. Okay, right? So we would have seen in kids, especially when we were a kid or when other kids are there, right? They tend to do many things in expectation of a reward. So the father will tell, if you complete studying this chapter, then we will go for a movie, or we will go and you can go after that and play with your friends, right? So that is what we mean by arranging a dependent relation between a stimulus and a response. Okay, right? So the reinforcements can come in many forms, and many of these things can be a motivator to this. These are all things which naturally happen. Okay, right? So it could be a reward, it could be an incentive. An incentive is different from a reward. Okay, right? It could be a punishment, it could be a consequence. We saw consequence previously also. What are the benefit you are going to get while doing that, right? So that's one. Then reinforcements by others, and then contingents. Contingents is basically a plan that if we do this, the following things, we will get a star, right? So it is not really a reward or an incentive. It is just a feeling that we will perform better. Okay, right? So contingent is like, if you're going to complete this assignment, you will get 2 stars for it. Okay, right? That's what is contingent. And then sanctions. Sanctions is the opposite of say a reward or an incentive, wherein if you do not do this, you will not be getting this, right? So that's called as sanctions. Okay, right? So these ones seem to influence the automatic motivation of people, right? And lastly, emotion, right? We all know what's an emotion. It's basically what they tell us. Emotion, defined here as emotion, is a complex reaction pattern involving experiential, behavioral, and physiological processes by which an individual tries to deal with the personally significant event. Okay, that's how emotion is defined in theoretical domains framework. But we all know what's an emotion. We always are emotional, and we do things because of our emotion. It could be fear, it could be anxiety, it could be a positive or a negative effect. It could be stress, depression, burnout. It could be anything because of which we might or we might not be doing. Okay, all right. So these are the basic domains and the constructs under each of these different domains of theoretical domains framework under reflective and automatic motivation. Okay. Are you all clear with this concept of how we are going with this? Any questions? Any questions at this point of time?
Sir, can you explain the difference of beliefs about capability and optimism in reflective motivation?
Okay. Optimism, right, is I hope I will my arm will improve. All right. And say, for example, a person believes that if I'm going to take a medicine, the diabetes level will come under control. Yeah, that's called as optimism. Okay.
Okay.
So optimism is about the desired goals, right? So I want to get rid of my diabetes, right? Or I want to do my activities, right? So I'm positive that it will come. When you tell a belief about capability, it is whether this person thinks, will I be able to do this particular exercise? Okay, that's belief about capability.
So, but both of it includes the person's self-confidence in that.
Well, here we don't talk about the self-confidence about it in optimism. In belief about capability, we talk about self-confidence. Belief about capability is it's not about that he will get all right. Okay, it's about I can do the exercise. Okay, right?
Okay.
Optimism is if I do the exercise, I will get this benefit. I will get some benefit. That is optimism. Belief about capability is if I'm I know I can do this particular exercise. So say, for example, you're going and giving a exercise prescription for a person. If he doesn't believe that he will be able to do that, then it seems to influence his automatic motivation.
Okay. Okay, sir.
Any other questions at this point of time? Okay, just I think another 5 more minutes max. Okay, right? Yeah. So now the first step is for us is to understand what are the factors that seem to influence motivation. In the olden times, it was very difficult for us to concretely define it, but now they have tried defining for this. Of course, as we all know in psychology, there might always be ups and downs, but it's basically because we are not understanding the complete part of it. They might be thinking that this is what is a factor, and we might be missing something else. Okay, right? So one little step we need to go ahead is when these constructs are there, we have just seen the definition of it. Okay, right? We don't know how they influence it. So it is very important for us to know how these different constructs will influence a behavior, whether they are related directly to the behavior or they are related indirectly to the behavior. Because if they are related directly to the behavior, then without addressing that particular construct, the behavior might not at all come. But if it's indirectly related to it, right, then if you are going to address that particular problem, right, then the behavior might or might not come. Okay, right? So there are different ways in which these can interact. I'm going to give you 2 examples of 2 theories which are predominant. From the constructs have in fact would have been taken from a few of these. Okay, right? So if we really want to understand this, there is a book called as ABC of Behavior Change Theories, which lists down as many as 80 different theories. And in each of these theories, it defines each of the constructs. Okay, so this book is very, very handy. And at any point of time, you want to find out which of the constructs is a problem. If you identify, then you can very well try to pick up the theory about it. Okay, right? And then obviously you can go and read about the theory. So you will understand the context of it, in what context the primary person has told that this would be influencing, and how it is acting. You will understand the relation between them. So there are two theories. The first one we are taking is called as a self-efficacy theory. Okay, right? Now, self-efficacy theory was propounded by a famous person called Albert Bandura. He's a very famous. His videos are in YouTube. His interviews are in YouTube, and he has revolutionized the field of business in more ways than psychology. So you will have to go and see about it. Very interesting. So what it tells is, in order to succeed, people need a sense of self-efficacy, to struggle together with resilience, to meet the inevitable obstacles and inequities of life. Let's just go on to what his theory tells. What his theory tells is, first it tells that for motivation, a self-efficacy is primarily required. And this self-efficacy is influenced by 4 factors. Number 1 is practical experience of doing that. The second one is vicarious experience. A vicarious experience is different from a practical experience. If practical experience is yours, vicarious experiences is the experience of others. You've heard about it. The other people have told, right? That if you do this particular form of exercise, or if you eat this particular type of food, then you will not suffer from this particular disease. That's a vicarious experience. The third one is verbal persuasion. Okay, right? That is, a person, if they try to persuade someone, then a person's self-efficacy increases. Okay, right? Self-efficacy is not only thinking that I can do this, but also planning out ways of doing it. That is self-efficacy. Okay, right? Yeah. And lastly, physiological arousal. So what he basically tells us, self-efficacy can be influenced by 4 of these factors: on his practical experience, vicarious experience, verbal persuasion, and physiological arousal. That is increasing their emotion, either fear or anxiety, or you can increase that, or you can give a very positive support and tell them that you will be able to do that, right? And they are basically, they get that emotion that yes, I can do this at this point of time. Okay, all right. So that's self-efficacy theory. So now, according to Bandura, what he tells is, if a behavior has to come in, then the person should have a self-efficacy. And for that person to have a self-efficacy, the following 4 things are required. That's what he tells. Okay, right? So in the first example, in the first question which I asked when I started is, how will you motivate him? So one of you told that, Vipinath, in fact, told that you will explain him what is the what he has done previously, and we will bring out his practical experiences of his recovery in order to support it, right? So if the person's self-efficacy was poor, then doing that or giving that suggestion or making him see the benefit what has previously happened is a factor in this, right? So in fact, we were right in this, but that's not the only factor. There are so many factors into that. That's what we need to understand. Okay, right? So this is one of it. Another theory, for example, is theory of planned behavior. It was propounded by Isaac Aitchison, and he has come out with a theory of what influences a behavior. And according to him, intentions are necessary for a behavior. So only if and only if the person intends to do it, then the behavior will come. And there are few factors which influence a person's intention. That is, if those factors are there, then only he will intend to do. The first one is attitude, right? The second one is subjective norm, and third one is perceived behavioral control. What we mean by attitude is, say, for example, a person, when you are giving a treatment, a person thinks that exercise may not be the best option, and he believes that the Ayurveda could be beneficial, right? So that is his attitude towards exercise, and that is his attitude towards Ayurveda. So he will intend to take that which is directed by his attitude. Right? Subjective norm is basically a social factor. It doesn't come under a motivational factor. That is what all of his friends and significant others, the most important people in his life to whom he listens, those persons believe will lead to the benefit. Okay, right? So that is called a subjective norm. And the third is perceived behavioral control leads to intention. We have already seen this as one of the sub-construct. Perceived behavioral control is if you ask a person to do a particular activity and tell him every minute things about what he has to do, then that person loses the control of doing that particular activity. So he will not intend to do it. Maybe because he needs to satisfy you in front of you, especially say, for example, you're a principal and the other person is a student or a teacher, then they will tend to do what the principal or the teacher wants, right? But that doesn't mean that the person is personally motivated towards doing that particular thing or learning that particular thing. So what is perceived behavioral control is you give a control to the person. You allow them to make choices, right? So if a person believes that I do have choices, I can do it this particular way or I can do it in that particular way. I can do it today or I can do it tomorrow. That option is available with me, then he will try to intend to do the behavior. Okay, right? So that's an example of how a theory, understanding that particular theory can help us to relate it. So if you see here, according to theory of planned behavior, perceived behavioral control is a factor which influences behavior. It might influence, but it predominantly acts through intention, and intention leads to a behavior. Okay, right? So that completes today's thing. I just took it a bit longer because the motivation part has a lot of constructs. So I just wanted to give you a bird's eye view or a brief outline of what it contains. Okay. So thank you. It's already 10:20. I know it's very late. Okay, still, if anyone wants to ask a question or tell something, you can just go ahead, and the others who would like to leave can leave ahead. The presentation will be available for you to look at it and then come back to it. There are more materials on that. I'll also be sharing that. So the session is open to questions, and those who want to leave, you can very well leave. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.